On this episode of Searching for History, we are continuing our San Juan Island series with an episode on the Pig War. What is the Pig War, you ask? Well, let's find out. On the southern edge of San Juan Island, the grass blows in the wind, and the sea stretches across the Strait of Juan de Fuca towards the Olympic Mountains. It's quiet now, peaceful, but over a century and a half ago, this tranquil prairie was the scene of a military standoff between two nations. It was called the Pig War. It's one of the strangest conflicts in North American history, a war sparked by the death of a pig, and the war ended without a single shot fired. To understand how this happened, we need to step back to the years after the Oregon Treaty of 1846. The Oregon Treaty was meant to settle the boundary between the United States and British Canada. But it left one critical detail unclear: which channel separated the two nations? Was it the Haro Strait, closest to Vancouver Island, or the Rosario Strait, closer to the mainland? In between those channels were the San Juan Islands, and in particular, the focus was on San Juan Island, claimed by both sides. By the 1850s, the Hudson's Bay Company had established Bellevue Farm here, British territory in their eyes. Meanwhile, American settlers from the Washington Territory began filing land claims of their own. Each community flew its own flag and looked suspiciously across the island at one another. The beginning of the story about the Pig War. June 15, 1859, an American farmer named Lyman Cutler discovered a large pig rooting in his potato patch. The animal belonged to Charles Griffin, an Irish employee of the Hudson's Bay Company. Cutler, frustrated, shot the pig. Cutler offered $10 to Griffin to compensate him for the pig. Griffin demanded $100, but Cutler refused. When British authorities threatened to arrest Cutler, nearby American settlers called for military protection from the United States Army. The question of who San Juan Island belonged to, whether it was the U.S. or Great Britain, nearly sparked a global conflict. While today only a flagpole remains, the Bellevue Sheep Farm was once a bustling British outpost employing a multiracial workforce including Hawaiians, Coast Salish, and other native peoples. The painting you see here is an artist's reconstruction of what the Bellevue Sheep Farm would have looked like in 1859. American Camp is out in the prairie at the south end of San Juan Island, not far from where the Hudson's Bay Company Bellevue Sheep Farm was located. So the consequence of killing the pig war crisis. When word reached the United States Army post at Fort Vancouver, U.S. Brigadier General William Harney sent orders to Fort Bellingham ordering Captain George Pickett to take a force consisting of 66 soldiers to San Juan Island and prevent the British from landing. And yes, this is the same George Pickett that's famous for the Pickett's Charge in the Battle of Gettysburg in the American Civil War. On July 27, 1859, Pickett landed at Griffin Bay and made camp. He soon found his unit outgunned by two British warships and sent for reinforcements. On July 27, 1859, Pickett raised the American flag and established American Camp. On August 1st, Pickett moved his camp near South Beach, away from the British ships. 2 days later, he parleyed in his tent with British Royal Navy Captain Geoffrey Hornby. Hornby felt Pickett would obstinately hold his ground, so Hornby waited for his superior, Rear Admiral R. Lambert Baines, who was at sea, before taking action. Of course, presence of the United States Army on San Juan Island provoked the British Navy. Within days, British warships anchored offshore, their guns trained on this ridge. The Americans had 66 soldiers, the British had more than 2,000 sailors and Marines. It was an uneven standoff, and one mistake could have meant war. The soldiers dug in, building an earthen redoubt and aiming their cannon toward the sea. For several tense weeks, both sides awaited orders that never came. In Washington, D.C. and London, officials scrambled to calm the situation before it spiraled out of control. The local commanders, Pickett and Admiral Robert Baines, agreed to hold fire. Baines reportedly said he would not involve two great nations in a war over a squabble about a pig. In early September 1859, U.S. soldiers began building this redoubt. A few weeks earlier, Captain Pickett had relinquished his command to higher-ranked Lieutenant Colonel Silas Casey, who had arrived with 3 fresh infantry companies. Casey soon decided on a more defensible location for his camp. Casey had his men manhandle 8 32-pounder guns to this ridge. He ordered his engineer detachment, commanded by 2nd Lieutenant Henry M. Robert, to build the earthwork. Robert's team, using picks and shovels, dug and mounded the redoubt, building 5 earthen gun platforms, still evident today. Only 1 artillery gun was ever mounted and fired. Weeks later, U.S. Army Commander Lieutenant General Winfield Scott arrived and negotiated with British Governor Douglas a settlement, joint military occupation, which would last for 12 years. In November 1859, U.S. Army Commander Lieutenant General Winfield Scott was given a 1-gun salute before his departure, following his successful negotiations with the British for the island's joint military occupation. Scott ordered the redoubt abandoned, the guns removed, and that only 1 Army company remain at American Camp. So you can see the earthen bank along here, and it's either been dug out or built up, but you can see the bank as it goes around the redoubt. This is actually pretty cool. Wow. Okay. So this bank was built up, and then this feature here, this looks like where one of the cannon would have been placed, right in this spot. And it looks like there's 3 of those, another one over there, maybe one in this corner. Yeah, this is kind of built up. Looks like a cannon would have been here. Another there. Maybe even another one in that corner. And then it's kind of a lower area for protection behind the bank, behind the redoubt. Wow, what an amazing view. And this looks like it was cut to create a slope here. Look at these really big boulders. I imagine they're probably erratics that are strewn about. You can see why he chose this position. There's an incredible field of view that would have been very difficult to attack without being fired upon, the entire time you're coming up these slopes. See if we can get a different perspective. In time, a joint military occupation was arranged. The British moved north to establish English Camp, sheltered by forest and calm waters. The Americans remained here at the southern prairie, exposed to the elements. Despite their uneasy truce, the two camps eventually found a rhythm. Officers attended each other's dinners and dances. Sporting activities replaced military drills. A crisis born of misunderstanding slowly became a lesson in coexistence. Now let's zoom over to English Camp. I think the British had a much better location for their camp than the Americans did. Life at English Camp was orderly, stone walls, gardens, and neat barracks by the bay. At American Camp, it was simpler, open land, tents, and wind-swept hills. Two ways of life side by side on the same small island. Years passed, soldiers came and went, and the two countries slowly forgot about the Pig War. The sun really hasn't gotten down in here yet. Behind me here is English Camp's blockhouse. This little information panel is saying that it was based off of the American Camp's blockhouse, and the second floor has been turned 45 degrees in order to give the blockhouse the ability to fire in all directions around it. It says here the upper story turned 45 degrees on its base, protected soldiers from all angles as they aimed their rifles out the loopholes. And then it's saying that it also acted as a guardhouse with the first floor as a guard room, and then Marines that were in trouble for misconduct were also held here as a jail. Yeah, so the second story was also a prison for the Marines when they got out of hand.
It's really beautiful out here this morning.
This interpretive panel, it's showing all of these different buildings. So there's a hospital here. It's showing the enlisted man barracks. Then you had a library and a school, a carpenter shop. It's all the officers' houses up on the hill, the formal garden and the blockhouse. And then all you see right here was the parade field. It's pretty cool. By 1871, the dispute had dragged on for more than a decade. That year, the United States and Britain agreed to submit the question to international arbitration. Kaiser Wilhelm I of Germany was chosen to decide the rightful boundary. His commission's ruling came in 1872. The boundary would follow the Haro Strait, awarding San Juan Island to the United States. The long standoff and the strangest war that was never fought was finally over. Today the grass grows where soldiers once aimed their rifles. The redoubt has weathered into the earth. From this location you can look west toward Canada across the same waters where warships once waited. Now commercial shipping crosses the boundary that two countries almost went to war to define. The Pig War reminds us that history isn't always about battles and victory. Sometimes it's about restraint and the wisdom to not go to war.
Don't forget to like, share, comment on this video, and please subscribe to this channel.
Thanks for watching.